Could the next Flappy Bird be somewhere in here? This week on Click, we'll visit the West Bank to check out its burgeoning tech scene. We'll also shed some light on the tech rarely seen on TV as we venture below the streets of London in search of the world's first smart tunnel. And we look forward to that tiny footballing event called the World Cup in Webscape. Welcome to Click. I'm Spencer Kelly. If you were watching the show last week, you will have seen some amazing tech from our trip to Israel, from flying ambulances to smartphone cancer detectors. There's a real buzz around the area in terms of research and innovation. But Israel's not the only location we've visited on our recent travels which demonstrated a thirst for all things geek. Ramallah in the occupied territories is being called the Palestinian Silicon Valley. You can't visit this region without being aware of the conflict which defines much of the landscape, and that includes technology. As we saw last week, the military heavily influences Israeli tech. We saw that with the ambulance drone, part funded by the Israel Defense Force. And while Israel leads the world with some of its tech, just a few miles away in the occupied territories of the West Bank, it's a different story. Here, Israeli occupation means import restrictions for Palestinians, and high-tech infrastructure is lacking as a result. But amid the conflict and the problems it causes, there are shoots of a tech industry that's starting to grow. Jane Copestake travelled to the West Bank to find out more.
We're driving into Ramallah to visit some of the tech startups based in the city. 20 kilometers north of Jerusalem, it's being touted as a new tech hub for the Arab world. Our first stop is a game of table tennis with the chief technical officer of Yamsafir. It's a hotel booking website for the Middle East and Turkey. It's now one of the most successful startups in Ramallah, but it faced an early setback. Many potential customers didn't have credit cards, so they couldn't pay for their bookings online. Yamsafir developed a trust algorithm to rank people using their site.
We had a really big problem with credit cards here. So we just figured it out after we faced the problem that, okay, everything is good, we have good product, we have good inventory, but the customers can't book because of the payment method. So it was like it took us like about 1 year to figure out this solution.
It's a small example of some of the challenges that come with working here.
We said, yeah, we'll go with it.
Khalid Abuhair is co-founder of gaming company Pinchpoint. They're hoping to find success by making the next Flappy Bird. His company spends weekends brainstorming game ideas that they can turn around quickly, like Egghead Runaway. Their latest major release is Sperm Mania. You play as sperm on the way to fertilize an egg. They say these unusual ideas are partly inspired by a life living under occupation.
With all the challenges and all the things, everything we do is actually we're faced with challenges. So always have to think outside the box, whether it's a service or it's a game. And I think this is what drives us, is that we're not afraid to try something else.
Before developing video games, Khalid was focused on a major hurdle for Palestinian tech developers: lack of access to 3G networks. This issue was highlighted on a recent visit by President Obama. Signs were put up telling him not to bother bringing his smartphone to Ramallah. Israel controls mobile bandwidth in the occupied territories, and Palestinian mobile companies don't yet have access to 3G networks. Large payment companies like PayPal don't accept payments to and from accounts in the occupied territories. But Google recently changed the tagline on its search engine from Palestinian territories to Palestine. This was after a UN vote that gave Palestine non-member state status.
When Google actually recognized Palestine and we got the domain, it was a huge buzz because everyone uses Google. If Google recognizes Palestine since it's in the UN state, then that's it. You see Palestine on the Google and you see it on the maps also.
But Google Maps weren't much help on our way to Yatta, 80 kilometers south of Ramallah, especially without a 3G signal. We spend an hour driving around looking for signs to our location. It seems an unlikely place to meet Khalil Shreita, but the hacker from Hebron was born and brought up here, and it's where he lives with his family. Khalil became famous around the world when he hacked into Mark Zuckerberg's Facebook page last year. He had hoped to be rewarded by the company's bug bounty program, which pays money to people who report issues with the site's security.
Actually, I hacked the Facebook twice, not for one time. The one which everyone knows, and the last one, Facebook paid me $5,000, 5,000.
So they did pay you?
The second time, yeah.
Khalil taught himself how to code online and saved up for 2 years to buy his first computer. After the Facebook hack, he received many lucrative job offers, including from Israel, but he chose to stay in the West Bank.
I could make a lot of money if I want to travel outside Palestine. But to work inside Palestine, first it's something loyal. And I like my work. It's a perfect place here for me than traveling outside.
There's a lot of talent here in the West Bank, but the limitations faced mean much of the development remains small scale.
There's a lot of companies here who work with the softwares, small companies and big companies. But if you want to make a big product to face the global markets, you can't find out, or it's hard to find it, because you need money to start that. And here, the Palestinian market doesn't have that much money to start a company and start facing the global markets.
Back in Ramallah, we meet Husni Abu Samra at the Movenpick Hotel, often a meeting place for tech startups and entrepreneurs.
So it gives you the BMI is 20.31.
His company, Mobistine, creates health-related apps for iOS for the Arabic-speaking market, which he says is underserved. This one tracks your pregnancy, everything from pictures of your bump to allergies and medical information. It even lets you log how you're feeling. The app is designed to link up with your doctor through the cloud so they know your symptoms before you arrive for an appointment. It's received backing from various funders to be developed in Arabic and English, but finding people to work on the technical side has been a challenge.
It's not easy to get technical people. When we started the development for smartphones, they were almost very few people, technical people who can develop apps. So we have to hire and train them for a few months then to be able to produce or develop apps.
However, Husni's work has already inspired his teenage son to learn how to program apps for iOS. Like Khalil and Yatta, Dia taught himself how to program online using Google. We came for tea at his home in Ramallah, and he showed us some of the apps he's been working on.
This is my first app.
Let's see.
This is the first one, yeah.
So this is all herbal remedies.
Yes.
And do you sell these apps, or are they free?
No, so
Sell them.
I told him the money you will get from selling your apps, I'll give them to you.
Making money through technology is a focus for young developers, especially in Ramallah. Another company, FadFid, which means venting in Arabic,
They can find a list of therapists here and book a session.
is a platform which discreetly connects people across the Arab world with therapists for confidential online counseling. Today, it still feels a long way from Silicon Valley, but for those working in this nascent tech scene, the hope is Palestinian technology will one day be a global focus.
We need a success story here in Palestine. This will excite everyone and be the reason why many people start working on their own startups. So I think what is missing now in Ramallah is a success story.
Jen Copestake with a fascinating look at life and tech in the West Bank. And if you have any thoughts on that story, or indeed anything else that we cover, the address, as always, is click@bbc.co.uk. Next up, a look at this week's tech news. The UK's National Crime Agency has advised internet users that they have 2 weeks to protect themselves from a major cyber threat called Game Over Zeus. The piece of malicious software which fishes around your computer for financial or other sensitive information has been taken control of by the FBI in America, but it's estimated that it could be back up and running in a couple of weeks. In the meantime, the advice is fairly familiar by now to use different, complex passwords for all the important sites that you use. Musicians including singer Billy Bragg and Radiohead guitarist Ed O'Brien have asked the European Union to intervene in a row with YouTube. The dispute centres on the rates the video sharing site is said to be offering small music labels to be included in a new advert-free music subscription service. YouTube has refused to comment on what it says are ongoing negotiations with artists. And London-based Rocksteady Studios' much-anticipated third Batman game, Arkham Knight, has been delayed. The Caped Crusaders' computerised exploits will now be released on next-gen consoles, the PS4 and Xbox One, along with PC next year. The Dark Knight Detective's development delay is just the latest in a spate of next-gen games which have seen their release dates postponed due to increased production times. Now, here on Click, we really do like to get to the bottom of every story. But sometimes, to find the most innovative tech, you have to go really, really deep. As Dave Lee discovered when he descended below these very streets to meet the people who are getting on top of some very important research.
The Crossrail project being built in London today is the biggest civil engineering feat in Europe. It's a completely new train network buried deep under London's streets. Huge machines weighing 1,000 tonnes each are digging out 41 kilometres of tunnel, each one between 6 and 11 metres in diameter. Engineering marvel this may be, but it also brings with it a few problems. Because as this map shows, so much of the ground beneath London has already been tunnelled. If this vast underground network is disturbed, it could cause disaster on the surface. To make sure that doesn't happen, you need to go down and down and pay very close attention. More than 2/3 of the tunnels in London were built during Victorian times. Researchers want to be sure the new construction nearby isn't putting them at risk. We're 25 metres below the hustle and bustle of central London, and these tunnels have been here for almost 100 years. But less than 2 metres below where I'm standing, a new tunnel is being made, and engineers at the University of Cambridge have filled these tunnels with sensors to monitor any movements.
This really is the world's first smart tunnel because we've filled it with so much instrumentation that we now have the ability to understand how this tunnel is behaving in a way that was never possible before. We've got fibre optic cables that run along the top and around some of the rings. Those are used for measuring how the tunnel rings deform against each other and actually how their shape changes. We've got some displacement sensors here, which again are looking at how the rings move with respect to each other. And we've got a range of targets here that are being used with digital camera technology, and that enables us to take a picture right down the length of the tunnel and see how different bits of the tunnel are moving with respect to each other.
The tunnel is able to create live data about its own health, information that can be collected and crunched on site. It means the team can keep tabs on the tunnel in real time. If anything unexpected happens, they'll know almost instantly. They've been gathering all this data for over a year now. It gives them previously unavailable insight into the effect digging tunnels can have. Until this one was made into a smart tunnel, experts had to rely on more expensive equipment like this. Getting the data out was painfully slow. Any small change picked up by the sensors in this tunnel could signal a potentially major problem above ground.
The effect is not going to be only on the tunnel itself, but that would mean that the soil is moving to move inside. That the soil is coming from somewhere inside, which means anything that you have on the surface could be affected. So it could cause catastrophe, it could cause unpredicted movement to assets and to structures that are not even close to this tunnel.
Construction teams are working 24 hours a day to make sure Crossrail is up and running for 2018. The team from Cambridge will be watching carefully to make sure everything remains safely on track.
For decades, anyone going to the cinema would be familiar with this, the sound of film whirring through the projector. Of course, these days, for many cinemas, that's been replaced by this, the sound of a happy hard drive. But what's next in the evolution of the silver screen? Al Maloney has been taking a look.
Edison, the late sage of Menlo Park, with Henry Ford, as he reenacted filming one of the first movies entitled A Man Sneezing, featuring Fred Ott.
I was the first leading man in the movies. It created a sensation.
Moving pictures have certainly come a long way over the past 100 years. From giant robots to giant monsters, the fantastic can now seem commonplace. Available in our homes and even on our phones, cinemas have had to find new ways to entice customers to part with their hard-earned cash. One company hoping to deliver that magic is Canadian firm IMAX. Known to many for their big screens and auditoriums, they have also invested heavily in the next generation of camera and projection technology. And this is the company's latest addition. Located in the heart of London's cinema district in Leicester Square, the screen is over 5 stories high and almost 90 feet wide. But any regular cinema goer will tell you that size isn't essential. What matters most is the picture and clarity of the image that's up on screen, which is why the method of projection is so important. And while cinema may have spent the last few years changing over to digital systems, IMAX is betting big on the fact that laser technology is the way forward. The technology involves replacing the xenon bulbs traditionally found in digital projectors. Theoretically, they should use less power, cause less heat, have to be replaced less, and even cause less noise than current projectors.
It's a crude prototype. It's not reflective of what we would productize, but what it does do is show proof of concept, and we use it as a test bed to test out how far can we push the limits of the system.
This system involves the lasers generating and then combining red, green and blue colour channels. Those colours then get fed through an optical engine and are projected onto the screen. The big selling point to consumers is the improved contrast ratio, that is the difference between the brightest and the darkest colours. For example, a current digital 4K projector has a contrast ratio of about 1600 to 1. IMAX claim that the laser projector will increase that to over 8,000 to 1.
And what that means is when you come into the movies, the blacks will be really, really black. And if you think about a movie like The Dark Knight Rises that Chris Nolan directed a year and a half ago, you know, that's really important for him and the audience to be able to discern between, you know, the blacks, the grays, the silvers. So you're going to get far more clarity on the screen. Laser also allows us to use far more of the color gamut that's available. So you're going to see on screen far more vivid and vibrant colors than you would be able to see, you know, with current projection technology.
Currently in prototype stage, the projectors should reach theatres sometime next year, where they will likely be joined by several other brands all eager to demonstrate that the future for the market is bright. Of course, you can have the highest quality picture in the world, but if it is not backed up by a story, you might be in trouble. Just ask Adam Sandler.
Start running fast!
Al Maloney, a man who I believe actually is allergic to sunlight. One person who really does never need to venture outside, in fact she locked herself inside her digital cave about a year ago, is Kate Russell. Here she is now with Webscape.
I'd probably get out more, Spencer, if I wasn't always hunting through hundreds of apps on my overloaded handset. If that sounds like you, Coverlock Screen can make an app obsession a lot more manageable by learning which apps you use in different locations at different times of day, adding them to your lock screen for easy access.
Giving your phone context depending on where you are is a brilliant idea. In the morning when you wake up, your news and weather apps could be on screen. In car mode, which can be triggered using motion detection or proximity to in-car Bluetooth devices, you'll have quick access to maps and hands-free communications tools.
If you're using KitKat, this app will even let you control music playback. And if there are some apps you'd rather keep hidden, this can all be tweaked in the settings. Your ringer will even be set to vibrate when at work, ring when at home, and automatically switch to silent for a peaceful night's rest. Digital currency Bitcoin has had a turbulent ride this year. But if it's going to survive, the one thing we really need to know is where we can use it. And that's the goal of OpenStreetMap project CoinMap, which allows users and shop owners to add venues where the currency can be traded.
Get my geek on, get my geek on.
There are a growing number of places you can use Bitcoin, as this map shows. But the cryptocurrency has taken some big knocks recently. China's banks have restricted usage. In Russia, it's considered illegal. And in March, the US tax office dealt a massive blow by declaring Bitcoin to be property rather than currency, which saw it lose 17% of its value pretty much overnight.
If you want to track the price of the digital currency, Bitcoin Charts has a nice open source tracking tool. NASA has released a new Flickr gallery containing 43 stunning images, which would make an excellent desktop design wherever you are.
This is ground control to Major Tom. Put your flags up in the sky.
The FIFA World Cup kicks off in Brazil next week, and the BBC's dedicated apps and online content will help you stay in touch with the touchline action on any device, anywhere, at any time. There's live coverage of all the matches, breaking news, expert analysis, and UK viewers can enjoy streaming video and highlights of every goal. True football addicts should download the Forza app that lets fans track live scores and statistics for their favourite teams from 420 leagues and cups around the world. Connect to rate players and share opinions with other footy aficionados, and there are a couple of nice extras being thrown in for the World Cup, including a live bracket feature, a real-time updated infographic showing the potential outcomes throughout the whole group stages and beyond.
Kate Russell's Webscape, and those links, if you missed them, are all up at our website as usual, bbc.co.uk/click. And if you'd like to get in touch with us about anything you've seen on this week's programme, you're more than welcome. You'll find us on Twitter, Facebook and Google+. Next week, we have a very special programme from Los Angeles. It is the highlight of the video gaming year, the Electronic Entertainment Expo, E3 as it's called, and I, for one, can't wait. So I'm going whether you like it or not. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in LA.